Tucker Pool is one of the co-founders of a group called Matyx, and Acquira has a lot of history with Tucker and his team there at Matyx. They have done some amazing things in the realm of social media marketing, website conversion efforts, pay-per-click, et cetera, and now the brave new world of AI. So one element, I alluded to it in some of the run-up info that I shared, Tucker is helping us on the ACE integration program, covering part of the sales and marketing lift that we've got in the ACE program, and has had some great results with several of our most recent successful buyers of businesses, but I'll let him get into that. So without much else, correct everything I said, Tucker, and get us on the track, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, gosh, how did we meet? Like, we work with a lot of different clients in the world of M&A. I've been around a little while. I may not look my age, but my hair shows it. I lose hair a lot, as anybody does when they run a business. I've been a full-time entrepreneur since 2009. I've bought and sold my own companies. I've started companies from scratch. I have found it easier. It's crazy to say this, because I used to think that starting a business was easier than buying one. And now that I have bought and scaled and sold businesses, I fully believe in buying over starting, because it cuts your time horizon sometimes in half, if not more, just from talent acquisition to cash flow to all of the things that go into buying a business. It's just, when you know what you're doing, it's so much easier to buy. Now, that being said, it's hard to find one that is a really good one, which is why Acquira does a great job and helps out in that arena. And that's not a plug either. That's the truth. I mean, I'm currently on the hunt for some businesses to buy. And I will say that the last time I did an acquisition search was 5-6 years ago. And man, the landscape has changed. Like, it is really, really competitive. There's a lot of interest from a lot of people. And there's a lot of people that are doing the wrong thing when it comes to buying a business. So, yeah, I mean, it's good that everybody's on here. It's good that everybody's in the community. But I met Acquira through working with M&A advisors. Like, we do a lot of lead generation. We do a lot of digital marketing and business optimization for M&A agencies and business brokers. And that's how we got connected originally to Acquira. And then we shared some content, and then it just kind of went from there. So yeah, and then on the ACE side, we're working with quite a few of the ACE businesses now, and things are going really, really well. Some of the results that we've seen already have been dramatic. I mean, it's usually takes us 90 days, sometimes 120 days to see results. And with some of these clients, we've been able to see results in less than 30, some of them instantly, because a lot of the stuff that the former business owners had gotten used to, that's a lot of the benefit of buying a business is they've done something for 15, 20 years and they haven't kept up with the times, and they just get used to recurring business, or they get used to working with referrals. And so when we step in and revitalize digital marketing, I mean, the results are almost instantaneous whenever they see a big boost in business. And then we get to backfill, as we call it, where it's, how are you talking to customers? How are you working with them? What are the automated follow-ups we can do, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of pieces in it, but I will say that so far it's been really well, and we've had a lot of really great feedback. And we tend to be, there's like 20 of us on Matyx, and we tend to be overkill when it comes to how we work with clients. They're not used to that. We meet with them once a week, if not once every other week. Sometimes we hear from them daily, and the whole team is just all hands on deck all the time for them. So they get an entire new team, if you will, rather than just the traditional account manager agency relationship.
Well, let's kind of, if we can, Tucker, let's kind of peel the onion on what, use some of the recent AE success stories to kind of walk through the basic approach and what can happen after you take over a business. And I'll kind of pad that question with, I've already seen 2 or 3 of our recent examples. The old website that the seller had running just flat out sucked. It was horrible graphics, no call to action buttons, no interactive elements whatsoever. So, take it from there, Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if I hadn't been doing this as long as I have, there's an education that comes with experience, and I don't think you can really have one without the other. Everybody that buys a business, they're about to learn more than they ever could possibly learn doing anything else. And I mean that. Like when you buy a business, you're about to learn not only what the previous owner did or didn't do well, but you're also going to learn finance, how to run a business, how to keep one operating, how to do HR, how to do talent acquisition, how to do the work that the business actually does to generate cash flow and revenue, and then how to get more of it, which is kind of where we step in. So, yeah, I mean, what I've learned in the years that I've been doing marketing that I didn't know in the beginning, because you think, as a business owner, it's easy to get stuck in that ego mindset of, oh, I've built it, people should work with me. And what you have to realize is, in the mind of most people, they just want something easy. And if your business is not easier to work with than your competitors, they're probably going to use your competitors, even if your price is cheaper. So it's not even necessarily pricing. So some of these that we've seen, we have simply made it, and there's a lot of pieces into it. It's not simple, but in a nutshell, it's simply made them easier to work with. We've made them more visible, so we've made them easier to find. And then we've made their processes a lot more simple for customers to understand. Because believe it or not, people read at an 8th grade level. I always say this, they read at an 8th to 10th grade level. So I'm not saying they're dumb, but people tend to understand and digest content when it's spelled out in an 8th to 10th grade level. And then take that down a notch, they convert at a 5th grade level. Meaning if your content is not, here's what we do, here's how to do it, and here's, more importantly, why that matters to you, it's probably not going to work. And then you have to take that, like you mentioned, calls to action. It has to be easy and it has to make sense. Like if you make the customer work for it, or make them dive through a bunch of forms, or they've got to figure out which service, they're trying to find. Like in home services, we see that a lot, where they're like, what service are you wanting? And they open the form and there's like 9,000 services in that form, and they're like, well, I really want my customer to be really qualified. And it's like, okay, why don't just have them call you and then you qualify them? Because then you're shortening that gap between who you want to work with and what do you want them to do. And that gap can get pretty wide. So, I mean, some of the more recent ones, like, Kyle Plumbing is a really great example, because he had SEO running before we worked with him. And so when we started looking at his stats and where he stood and where his competitors were, he was not there. We do a competitive analysis and say, here's where your competitors are, here's where their rankings are, here's where their keywords are, and you're not there. How long have you been doing SEO? And he's like, I think this guy's been doing it for years. Like, I don't know what they were doing, but it's not working. So we've got to figure something else out. So we wrote a bunch of content. We revitalized their landing page. We put a lot of PPC effort into it. We capitalized on some opportunities in his local market. We started emailing his previous clients. We emailed customers that had never worked with him. And it's been really dramatic for him to see that change. So much so that on some of our calls, it gets, for me, I'm a very transparent diagnosis, maybe a little too much sometimes. And I like to see justification behind what people's numbers are. Like, I don't just believe things on surface level. And even for our own company. So we saw such a dramatic increase that I was like, this is BS. There is no way that this is accurate. And Kevin's like, well, y'all are the company that did it. So I'm like, we need to dive into this further. And we were able to justify those numbers all the way up to 95% accuracy. So it really did work that well for his particular use case. And that's just one example. Like whenever you've got a team that's proactive, not just internal, but external too, like whoever you hire to help you grow your business, just make sure it's very proactive, very straightforward, and that the results actually make sense and that align with the goals of the business, instead of just like we hear this all the time. People are like, well, I want to be number one on Google. And it's like, cool, what for? Because there's probably 10,000 things that you could pick to be number one on Google for. So why not actually pick what's relevant to your business that makes most sense, that allows you to keep scaling and growing and keep cash flow coming in the door?
Now, Tucker, it's kind of intuitive that when we're thinking about a B2C kind of relationship, which a direct service oriented business would be doing, the whole website conversion, pay-per-click, SEO stuff seems kind of intuitive. But what about more of a B2B? We've got a few entrepreneurs that are looking at businesses that are much more in kind of the commercial space. That they'll do commercial electrical or commercial HVAC or things like that. Are there similar opportunities with those kind of companies?
Yeah, it's a different strategy. I call it being everywhere. Like B2C, normally when they want to hire you, they need something yesterday, right? Like something's broken, basically, and I need you to come and fix it. And I need to make sure that I can afford you to come and fix it. But more importantly, I need you to come and fix it now. Whereas B2B, you have a little bit more of a time horizon and the urgency level is not there. Like it's normally you're estimating on a job, you're bidding on a project, you're wanting to put, something that we're learning a lot about that I'm about to get for my house are tankless water heaters, with some of our plumbing contractors. And not only the importance of those, but how they benefit the organization. They cut maintenance costs. There's everlasting hot water. I mean, there's all the benefits rolled in. So with that, it's more intent based. You want to capture search traffic where people are actively searching for what you're doing, because they are. And that's a Google play. It's not necessarily social media. Very rarely will you get somebody on social media that wants something commercially done. Most of the time they're searching electrical contractor in this area, and a lot of the keywords are a lot more specific than just my stuff's broke, come and fix it. So for a landing page, or for a place on the website, we have to make sure that where we're sending them matches what they search for. That's really important. You don't just blast them to the homepage and hope for the best. It has to be something that is spelled out with that 8th grade, 5th grade type deal I talked about a minute ago. And then you have to make sure that what they're looking for, you're offering, and then more importantly, why they should do it with you. So for the tankless stuff, we offer discounts, coupons. Use it, talk to us and get 20% off your installation. Talk to us and get this. That tends to work really well. But then for an estimate side, once you capture their contact information or you talk to them, more than likely you're not going to get a deal right out of the gate, right? Like they want to know how much it costs. They're going to shop you around. They're going to do estimates. They're going to collect bids, whatever that part of it is. So you want to make sure that you have a follow-up system, because usually the speed to lead concept is what makes sense and the most sense. Because more important to a contractor or somebody building something, sure, price is important, but more important is, are you actually going to get the job done? And do I have to worry about you doing it? And are you going to show up on time? Are your guys licensed? Are you bonded? All of the stuff that goes with the reputational aspect. Do you have 5-star reviews on Google? Do you have 5-star reviews on Yelp? All of that stuff is really important. And when you match that with a follow-up cadence, you usually get the deal. And what we're seeing is most companies now, the ones that we work with are now not, but before we worked with them, the follow-up was non-existent. It was, hey, where are you tracking your estimates? Oh, Microsoft Excel. Cool. When was the last time you talked to this guy? They're like, well, I sent him an estimate. Did you call him? Did you call him to make sure he got the estimate? Did you call him after he got the estimate 2 days later and ask him what he thought of it? If price was an objection, did you offer to work with him on the price? Is it a time? Like what's the issue associated with that you can match your sales and marketing together and keep that moving? So targeting is intent rather than awareness. Whereas on B2C, you just want to be there. You know, like you want to be everywhere, and make sure that when the customer searches my stuff's broke in my area, you're there. Whereas for B2B, it's intent based. Like you want to make sure that you're showing up for exactly what they're searching for, when they're searching for it, and more likely than not, that is a search traffic rather than social media.
I like what you said about the element of having a process that even once you get that prospect, and I think ultimately this applies whether it's B2B or B2C, because when you get a prospect in the hand, that is your immediate opportunity to impress. And if your response process, your action process, I'll give you a quick example right now. I'm going through a personal thing at my house. I had to fire my pool guy that I've used for about 2 years. His service just degraded week over week over week. And so I fired him, right? So now I'm shopping for a pool company and I get a couple of recommendations from friends. And I call this one who is highly regarded. I mean, everybody I've talked to loves them. But I said, all right, what's the deal? How do I get into your, how do I get on your route schedule? Well, next time a guy's in the neighborhood, he's going to stop by and do a water sample and we'll bring it back. We'll do the reading. We'll give you a call and we'll talk about what you need and how to do it. Great. Okay. I get that. That makes sense. And I'm thinking in my mind, well, route guys are everywhere all the time. Surely it's only going to take a couple of days and I'll have a guy here and we'll do this. 8 days ago, still no guy, no call, no follow-up. And I'm going, really? And I called him yesterday and I said, we're exactly on the 1 week mark. What are we doing? Am I going to get service from you guys? Oh yeah, well, you're in the queue. We had bad weather and it put us behind our schedule. Red flag. They're understaffed. If that's true, if all of those things are true, I get that. Things do happen. But are you understaffed? Do you not have a dedicated effort to take on new customers? Or is it just dumped on a poor route guy who's out in the 100-degree Texas heat, sweating his buns off, doing other pools, and you get into all that kind of mindset. So to say the least, the impression with this supposedly great company is not off to a good start in my mind, right?
Well, you have to make sure that you're not an estimate mill. Like I call them puppy mills, and that's a very derogatory term to companies that just blast out estimates and then they nitpick the estimates, and those are the only ones that they follow up with. Whereas if their business model was you're obviously a qualified client, qualified customer. You should get more attention than somebody who's like, "Can you build a pool for $1,000?" That's a no. But if you already have a pool, or you're in the market for getting a pool, or you just need it serviced, then they have to have a business model and a process, because you're right, that first contact's really important. But then more important is showing you that they want your business and earning that business. And hey, we're going to be on time. And if we're not, I want to hear about it. Even with my own guys, like I've got a really great team, which is why I'm looking at maybe buying another 8, because I want even more of better of what I have. Like buying talent is easier than finding talent. And so, but even then, I leave it open. Like, I don't want to be as accessible as possible to clients, but I am, because I want that feedback. Like, if one of my guys didn't do what they said they were going to do, I want to know about it so that I can fix it. And when you do that in your own business and let customers know that, like we have a feedback line, kind of like it's kind of silly, but when you're driving down the highway and you see on the back of a car, when it says, if I'm driving crazy, call this number. Same concept. And that builds that trust with customers to know that at any point in time, if something's not going well, they've got a direct line to a feedback system to get something fixed. Or look, you're not getting my business. And a lot of that just goes back to fundamentals, which is marketing. Whether you admit it or not, like marketing isn't just going on the internet and hoping for the best. It's a full scale cycle system of who do you want to work with? Let's attract them. What do we want them to do? Okay, once we get them to do what we want to do, we follow up with them. Once we follow up with them and they buy from us, cool. Then they go into another follow-up channel for referrals and reviews. And at any point in time, there's quality control to make sure that they know what to do in case something goes wrong. And you'd be shocked to know how many businesses don't do that.
Right.
Yeah, it may be 5% in your area, like probably 2 actually in your area or in whatever market you're going into that actually do that. Most of them are estimate mills. Like they're like,
Right.
oh, you want us to service your pool or build a new pool? I'll call you in 6 months.
Yeah.
Which is
Well,
stupid.
and I don't want to particularly overhype or oversell the value of this kind of a dimension in your business, but what I will say is historically, a lot of the businesses we've ended up closing on with AEs that have come through the Acquira programs, most of the time the prior owner seller doesn't have any of this going on in a good way. They, to Tucker's earlier point, they might have stood up a website in 2010 and probably haven't done much of anything with it since. And when you go look at it, you can tell, and the integration with lead capture and taking the data off of the website and putting it into a funnel system inside the business to act on those leads, do the follow-ups, do the calls, do whatever it is you're doing. A lot of those systems are not real sophisticated, and I'm just making a broad generalization in the audience that we're serving. But my point is, there's a whole lot of opportunity. If you guys will all remember in your training, we have the intrinsic value calculator. And one of the elements of that is the notion of the question, what's going on in sales and marketing? How is the business being positioned? And if you can invest the time and money to improve this one area, and you don't have to spend boatloads to get there, by the way, we'll talk about that a little more. You can see a measurable uptick in the outcome. And I'd like to go back, Tucker, to your example with Kevin there at Kyle, when you said you couldn't believe the numbers. Give me a relative scale here. What are we talking about? Where did they start, and what was this first number that gave you the pause and the aha moment?
Well, so with home service, there's things that work really, really well, and then there's things that are add-ons after you nail the primary. Like the primary is Google Local. Like make sure you nail that. Well, that's pay per lead. So you're not throwing a budget at Google and optimizing at that point. You're just at the top of Google Local search results. And then there's PPC, and then there's organic, and SEO, and then there's all the other channels. There's social. And so I think the budget that month was like $3,500 for PPC. And what we were seeing on the return was over $80,000, which is like, there's no way that's possible. Well, what we weren't accounting for is we were also doing email marketing. And most of that stuff was coming through, like a lot of that was coming through email marketing. And it was just rolling into the wrong dashboard in Service Titan. So the attribution was off, which is why it looked, why I was like, there's no way no way. And Kevin, great dude.
I'm not that good.
Yeah, Kevin's like, y'all are the experts. You tell me. And so we took the time and fixed attribution. Attribution is hard with a lot of this stuff. And what I mean by that is making sure that you're able to track where something came from. So if somebody, in his example, it's like a whole home copper new pipe system that I'm not going to act like I know plumbing, but we were able to take a few of those jobs, and you have to track where they came from. So did they come from an existing customer? Was it a new customer? And then what marketing channel directly did that come from? How did it happen? Because the more data that we have, the better we can get at our job. So when we took the time to do that, we validated all of that and realized that his return on email marketing made return on ad spend look like a joke. Now, the ad spend was still high. I mean, it's still really great. But the return on email marketing was insane. I mean, it was like you drop $1,000 in email marketing, you make back 30, which is crazy. But that's how it worked. So we were able to show a much higher ROI for him because we broadened the mix. We weren't solely focused on local service ads or PPC or social, which all work and they all have a really great ROI. But whenever you're able to get granular, metrics matter, but metrics only matter when you have all the other pieces put into place. Otherwise, you're just guessing. And because that worked so well, so fast, we had to backtrack and retrace and figure out where all this stuff came from.
Yeah. Well, and as many of you on the call here know, if you've taken the tour with Kevin there in Florida, he's done a number of other things with that business since he took it over, and he's just now coming up on his 1 year anniversary of owning that business. But one of the early moves, he did do a bold price bump, because he believed in what his guys were going to be able to do, and they went to market with, I don't remember the exact metric on it, but it was a pretty substantial price bump. I'm going to, somebody correct me if you remember exactly, but I'm thinking like 40 to 50% in some categories, and he lost like zero business from doing that. And it did kind of pre-select the clients he wanted to work with, and within a month he realized the calls he was getting were exactly the people he wanted to work with, and he had gotten rid of a lot of the other noise that was in their system, the lower dollar, higher maintenance kind of support people. So I say all that to say, part of this is it's a multifaceted equation. So what Tucker's talking about on the marketing and the sales effort certainly can be done, but you also have to get to the basics of your service offering and the pricing that you've established relative to the market you're in, and be sure that you've got a good alignment there. And then when you turn on these engines like Tucker can support, then that's where you see the real gain of everything coming through, everything pulling through on your business. I want to maybe stop a minute and kind of open it up for questions. Anybody have a thought or a question they want to ask Tucker? Don't be shy. Oh, come on. Somebody's got to have something.
I got one. What are your general services costs? The cost
Good
of your
question.
services?
So years ago, we used to do project-based stuff, and we realized from a business model perspective is project-based usually doesn't benefit the client as much as it probably should. So we switched to a package system, and I did that because I started really noticing what competitors weren't doing and what they were trying to do. And usually in the digital marketing space, people try to focus on one or two things. And in full transparency, it's because they can probably offshore it and hope for the best. And then their churn rate keeps going up and they don't know why. So what we started doing is offering performance marketing packages. So it's something that internally we have a point system assigned to, and everybody has this really easy to use, but really complicated on the backside sheet that allows us to fit as many services as we possibly can into a pricing tier. So our pricing tier, like the lowest tier starts at like $3,800, but our highest pricing tier goes all the way up to like $50,000. And it depends on the size of the company, what they're needing, and what packages or services that we're able to get into those different monthly pricing packages. And then it turns into unlimited. So for the customer, they don't have to worry about like their bill is this no matter what. Whereas with other companies, they're like, oh, we did a setup that month. That's extra. Or we did a bunch of content changes on your website, and now we need to bill you by the hour. Like for us, it's just blanket across the board. Here's what your price is. Here's what you're getting. Here's what you're paying for, no matter what, unless you drop a pricing tier or remove services from that. So ever since we launched that, it's been easier for everybody. And it's also easier to measure a return on investment for companies, because we're able to say, here's what you're paying for Matyx services. Here's what your ad spend is. And with your attribution and your dashboards and what we're able to track, here's what you brought back from that. And ever since we did that, it's worked so much better. And other companies have not picked up on that yet. They will sooner or later. Like, we're not the biggest in the world, but they'll figure it out. Most companies do, like for example, Kyle Plumbing, they were paying like $1,800 a month just for SEO. And we're like, guys, that's almost free in these packages that we have. Like SEO, everybody likes to think it's this crazy complicated deal. And it's not. I'm not going to say that it's not hard to do in a competitive market, but the fundamentals of SEO are easy. It's just repetitive. So if you're willing to do the repetitive work that goes with SEO, you'll probably get ahead of your competitors really fast. But it's not some crazy, giant, complicated mix of crap that everybody wants you to believe. And that's why they charge so much just for one-off SEO projects that more than likely don't ever go anywhere. I mean, it's like PPC. Like, whenever we work with a client who wants lead generation, they're like, hey, I want to make more money. I want more leads. Well, is your website ready for that? Are you ready for that? Can you handle 20% in more business? How are you handling leads? Because if one of the times that I got in trouble on a call was I was using this analogy of our job is to bring babies to your doorstep, and then we just hope that you don't murder the baby. And one of the women on the call was pregnant, so she took offense to that, and then we made it a joke, and she laughed, and they became a client afterwards. But the analogy holds true. Like, we're going to bring leads to you, and a lot of them, but you're going to fire us if you can't sell those leads. You know, so we have to make sure that your website's good. We have to make sure that your calls to action are good, that your offer is good, that the way you talk to people is buttoned up. And so then they're like, well, how much does that cost? Well, glad you asked, because we have a service and a package and a way that you can do that called performance marketing that makes it to where you're not just one-offing this and hoping for the best.
Dean, you've got a question?
Yes. Hi, guys.
Yeah, go.
So I want to ask, so let's say out of the first tier that you guys charge 38, is that just for your services, or is that like that includes the like Facebook, like everything that comes with it, like the Google stuff, or is there on top of it we have to pay for all the other stuff?
No, so what that first tier normally includes is landing pages. So because it's not going to be a full website, with tier 2, where it goes up a little, we actually build the full website and host and maintenance it and do everything under the sun for every bell and whistle. But the initial one, we have to have somewhere to send traffic. So we normally build 2 or 3 landing pages so that we can A/B test. And then we drive Google traffic. We run your social media. We do SEO. And then if you want, like, we have a phone system that we have. And then we also do follow-up automations. So, for example, if you send something to somebody like a quote, and you don't have the sales team ready to follow up with them, then that's where AI and SMS and IP as a service comes in, and we start automating drip follow-ups to get responses. And the follow-ups are cool because they tier up. You know, what I mean by that is if you send an estimate to somebody for $5,000 and they're like, I don't really want to talk to you right now. So then maybe the next follow-up is, hey, would you talk to us if we gave you 5% off of your estimate, or something to that nature. So we start tiering that up based on parameters to get a response from them, and that tends to work pretty well too. But yeah, the tier 1 is meant to get results, but it doesn't include a full-blown website like what we do for a lot of situations when their website's just, to Doug's point, trash.
Yeah.
Or Squarespace, God forbid.
Or Wix or something
Wix.
like that. Yeah. So, Dean, did that help?
I think maybe your question was it does not include ad spend. You know, ad spend will be on the top of that. So whatever.
Got it. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Okay. And can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
So let's say if you give an example of like Kevin, you're saying it sounds like he did the first tier. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what did he spend on top of that as ad spend to get results?
I think his first month was like $1,000, and we got results.
Oh, wow.
I think he's like up to 5 now, but it scales, right? Like,
right.
Our number one metric, and we do this on our team calls and our exercise calls, is return on investment, right? Like, everybody focuses on all the buzzwords like ROAS and all of this crap that nobody really can quantify. What
Right.
I want to know is how much you actually made gross profit. You know, if all your employees and stuff, whatever, that's your problem if you're not pricing stuff correctly, and we can help you with that. But what I want to know, like we work with a door manufacturer that manufactures iron doors and wood doors and all this stuff, and their gross margin is 50%. So if we're not ROIing on their gross margin, what are we doing? And that's what we want to know so that we can scale your ad spend to go with it. So that we're not just going, yeah, let's throw 5,000 in a briefcase and throw it in the Google River and hope it comes back. Like it starts, and then we start scaling up. And if we do it right, and the team is easy to work with, and the business owner is the right kind of business owner, it pays for itself. I mean, that's the whole point of doing it. Then it becomes an asset to your business rather than expense.
Right. And that's what you were saying, that usually it takes about 90 days to start seeing that ROI be positive.
Well, it depends. If we're building a website, yeah. If we're not building the website and it's like landing pages, we've seen results in 2 weeks. It just depends on the market, right? Like whatever market you're in, how competitive is it? What are your competitors doing? And then coming up with a strategy to get ahead of them. Like I love bidding on competitors' names. Pepsi does it. Coca-Cola does it. Everybody does it. You know, if you search Amazon, you get Walmart, right? Like everybody does it. And I love doing that because they're not, because they don't think you're a competitor. So if you start bidding on their brand words and their brand keywords, and your offer is better, like count in the countertop world, it's easy to do offers like get 20% off, use this coupon, whatever it is. So match that with a better landing page, with a better ad spend and more optimized stuff. You normally make the competitors get really pissed off, and then it becomes a lot of fun.
That's funny. That sounds great. It's really smart.
Well, and the good news for most of y'all, the way the target companies you're going after, when you look at the average ticket that comes out of a one opportunity, you usually can make one of these monthly spends. Just if not in one deal, you can make it in 2 or 3 deals, and you're done. Your everything else after that is gain. So that's why the scalability of this is so interesting, because once you get that sort of initial push mobilized and realized, all of a sudden it becomes very much a self-funding opportunity, and you're not really bleeding working capital over 6, 8, 12 months to get a return.
Well, a lot of it's visibility. Like understanding where things come from, and attribution is really important. Like for our door and window client, we've been working with them for like 4 years, and they're one of our biggest success stories because we've been able to drive $9.5 million for them with 680,000 in ad spend. And we track that because we have access to their dashboards, and we use it as a case study and a success story. And it's huge. And they have grilled me so many times over the years, and we will go back, and we've even hired a forensic team at one point a couple of years ago, because they wanted us to make sure that our attribution was rock solid. And it is. In fact, it went the other direction than what they thought it was going to go. You know, like there is no way. And we're like, let's find out. And whenever we did the audit and ran through, there was like $300,000 in additional revenue that we weren't even accounting for. So whenever you do it right, like Doug's right, it becomes a business model less than just a ad spend. But it also takes the right business to do it. Like you can't have 2 people on, you know, if you want your office manager to do AP, AR, answer the phone, and follow up with customers and do sales, this will never work. You have to have the right structure and the right setup. I mean, even today, I'm writing talk tracks for a few of our clients because I listened to their phone calls, because we have a way to do that. We actually have an attribution system that records phone calls, and we get AI summaries, and the AI will actually tell us whether it was a good or bad call. And I'm like, God, your people are horrible on the phone. We have got to make that better. So I'm writing talk tracks for them, and we're going to do some training to make sure that when they talk to clients, they're not like, hey, how can I help? You know, and it's just nobody wants to talk to you at that point. And just that alone can have a massive impact on sales, because then you're easy to work with and your attitude's good.
Yep. All right. Any other questions? Checking the dashboard here. Well, Tucker, I can think of one. If you think about the journey that everybody is on, who's on this call right now, they're still on the front end of either trying to identify the business or negotiate the one they've got on the hook. What are some questions they ought to be asking about the efficiency and efficacy of pre-existing marketing and sales? I mean, it's not just what's your top side revenue in the trailing 12 months, but what are some of the more granular questions they ought to consider asking about marketing and sales?
I mean, I can speak for me with what I ask. Now I ask questions that other people don't, because my number one question is not so much cash flow, right? Like you can boost earnings in a business just by optimizing your expenses. Like everybody calls it a quality of earnings. I call it a question of expenses. Like, why are you doing this? Does this matter? Can we renegotiate? Like that stuff is more by the book. You're probably already doing that. But more important than that to me is who actually does what. Because a lot of business owners, if you frame the question right, will tell on themselves. Of course, every business owner is like, oh, this business runs itself. It's owner independent. It's turnkey. All I do is make sure everybody does their job. And then if you frame that right and you ask them like, hey, how did you build this business? What makes you like working in your business? They'll tell on themselves. They'll be like, when I talk to this customer, this and this and this and this. And it's like, I thought you didn't do that. Like there's a lot of ways to get around that, because that is important, because you want to make sure that you're not buying a 40-hour-a-week job. Like when you step into a business, there's a lot that's going to get thrown at you. And, you want to avoid being Elon Musk where you're sleeping on the floor for every night. So there's a lot of that I ask. And then I also ask lifetime value, which is LTV. Like depending on the business, it's different. And not only that, depending on the customer in the business and what they're doing, but by lifetime value, how long do they stick around and what do they normally spend with you is what I want to know, because I want to make sure it's not churn and burn, and not just digital marketing, but even home service businesses. Like what's your repeat business? How often do you hear back from clients? What are your reviews look like? Is there a level of recurring revenue? Are there annual service agreements? And what's the % of renewal on those annual service agreements? Because that stuff does matter for both sides of the equation. Like if it's really good, awesome. But if it's really bad, that's an opportunity to instantly improve that and discount that business. Hey, if this was up, I'd give you full asking price, but because your reviews are dismal and you have 1-star reviews and you suck as a business owner, I'll pay for your business, but it's going to be a little bit less because I need to spend money to improve those things that you did not do. Yeah. So it's a kind of a twofold strategy. Now, whether you actually get to have that conversation with the business owner, you kind of got to get there. But don't be afraid to have those conversations, because it's important.
Yeah. Okay, one last round. Any other questions anybody has for today? Yeah, Thomas, go ahead.
Hey, Tucker. Hi, everybody. Really interesting conversation. I love what I'm hearing. And I have one question.
Sure.
What do you guys do with the B2B service companies that are kind of hard to keywordify what they do? So I'm working with a company that is doing touch-ups, basically fixing touch-ups. Exactly. I think that's we hit the nail in the head with this question. So they do like surface repairs for wooden and metal surfaces, okay. and stone as well. And their value proposition is that it's so much cheaper to repair something than to replace it. And
I actually like that as a marketing message.
So how would the company has never done any marketing in their entire existence because the phone was just ringing, because it's kind of a unique service. They are the best in the industry, and I'm wondering how could I market it B2B or maybe even B2C?
So I'll use an example of one that we have. There's offer alignment. And what I mean by offer alignment is your competition is basically replace, right? Like somebody's like, let's just take countertops or whatever it is. They're like, I want new countertops. I don't want you to fix what I've got. And so align yourself with that as either A, the lower cost option, B, the faster option, or C, provide more value in what you're talking to people, but use the same keywords, the same offer, the same type of setup, because then you're competing directly as a cost level because it is cheaper, and people usually want a cheaper option. Now, that's going to take a little bit of effort, and elbow grease to do that. It is doable. What we did for a client that's in the telecom expense management industry, which is not anything similar to what you're doing, but it's similar in how specific that
I see what you
is
mean.
and how hard that is to grab search traffic because it's non-existent, because no one knows about it, right? So it's hard. So what we did for them was twofold. One, it was offer alignment. So we were aligning with voice over internet, enterprise telecom, and offering them as a lower cost option. Like, hey, instead of replacing, let us optimize your telecom expenses, which worked pretty well. But worked even better than that was we developed a referral system. So it was like, hey, who's your biggest customer? And theirs was like Coca-Cola or something insane. Cool. Who bought from you? Why did they buy from you? What made them pick you? What do they like about using you? And are they willing to get a discount on their service if they refer other customers to you? Let's build that and then scale that. So then you get like existing clients that really like you. That's where it works really well, B2B. And you offer that, you cut them in on it. We do that all the time at Matyx. Like we'll find a client, because it's easier to get referrals than it is to go hunt new business. So we'll cut our referral partners in on the deal. Like, hey, we'll discount your services. I have a client that we've worked with for 5 years that they don't even pay for services because they referred so much to us. And do the same thing with your existing clients and get them to refer that and then back them up with the marketing to go with it. So, hey, here's how you talk to, like basically you're turning them into sales reps for your business at that point. So
I see.
Kind of twofold there. One, go after the low-hanging fruit, because the low-hanging fruit with you is replacement. Just go full force into that. And then make sure that your existing customers are really happy with you. And if so, turn that into a marketing message that they can use to get other customers to use you and cut them in on it.
Brilliant. Thank you. That sounds like a good approach.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that that's easy to do. Like there's a lot of pieces in there. But that is a strategy that we have used that worked really, really, really well.
I see. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, hearing none, Tucker, thank you so much for sitting in, man. Really appreciate you being part of the talk today. And
absolutely.
Again, for those of you who may be looking ahead to closing on your business, if you do subscribe to our ACE management run process, you're going to get to meet more of Tucker and his team as part of that ACE program. And that will be your segue into getting kind of that initial analysis and playbook strategy laid down before you think about committing to the month over month program you may want to invest in. So that's all wrapped in the ACE offering that we have. So know that when you get to that point in your journey, you'll be able to tap into that as part of the resource. So we're going to sign off now. We'll get this thing, the recording released and posted. So thanks everyone for sitting in. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you so
Thank
much.
you. See you guys.
Thanks.